And again, with Wukong banned, they will go for the Viego, it seems, and that will give BLG priority on potentially AD carries, mid supports. We'll see if they do opt to lock this in.
I'm curious about those 80 carries, though, for Doggo and Chris. If they go back towards the Lulu Cog, had a decent lane, but felt like it was, you know, not really an option for their team fights because of how well Ultra Prime did with their picks. With the Viego there, Orcs, run me through BLG's options.
So the Renata being open, you could take like a Renata dual lane, but Kalista not being there kind of limits the effectiveness. But we could see that, you know, Aphelios Renata is pretty potent. I think maybe you could just take a jungler to not reveal too much, or you lock it in if you want to commit, and they are going to. So okay. This is very much a defensive kite back lane. You can outrange it, definitely. But obviously Ezreal, something that could do that, is banned away. If you run into this, we know all about Renata, Aphelios red-white guns. The Renata can make sure he doesn't actually die. He can get the return kill. And on top of that, the ultimate from Renata, fantastic for when people are diving into him. So Ultra Prime, potentially looking at an option with long range. The Senna would make a lot of sense in this situation. And then you can pair it up with whatever you want. Tahm, Kench, the typical one. But knowing you know the full bot lane matchup, you could even go for something else to pair, but they will commit to that Tahm, Kench. So bot lane locked in for both teams. Now BLG have some choices. They can go for like a top laner or a mid laner here and ban away counters. They could pick up Ari for FoFo, ban away like Lissandra, or they could go for a jungler just to match. But realistically, game one, we saw that WeiWei was really good in the Graves. So as long as he feels comfortable in his pool, you can just leave it till the next rotation and give emphasis to your solo laners. It looks like that's what they're going to do and lock in that Swain.
Makes sense. I mean, FoFo had a pretty good game one on it, and the Twisted Fate was nowhere near what this Swain was at the start of the series. So nice to see FoFo return to something that has a bit more carry potential, whether it's the Mandate or the Leandri's build. But now, Orcs, we know that BLG without a jungler are prime banning by Ultra Prime. While on the other side, Cryin going to be targeted a bit here as per usual.
Something I'm going to say with this BLG composition, this is like one of the hardest anti-dive comps I've seen. All three champions fantastic into short-range dive threats. I feel like Ultra Prime, I'd actually love to see them lean into things that have a bit longer range if they can do so, because I think if you get up close and personal with BLG's comp, you will struggle. BLG probably looking to get some engage across the composition, just to try and get people up close and force those fights. So we'll see what they opt for here. The TF can be banned away from Cryin. The Ari as well. Definitely something that can play around those dashes and keep at a distance.
Yeah.
Now for Ultra Prime, see if there's anything else they want to throw towards a jungler. Maybe a ban towards Bin even. As other than the Gwen, we haven't seen too many, and they will go for that Fiora.
I love it. You know, Fiora, Camille. Those are the two champions when you think about Bin. And of course, we'll say Gangplank as well now. That kind of has to go in there.
I think Gwen now at this point.
Yeah, that's true. But Gwen's just like an everyone top lane champion, though. You know, I'd even say the
You can't be top lane and not play this champ.
Yeah, that's right. So, you know, it's few and far between. Olaf hovered now. We haven't seen that in the top lane as of yet. But something we have seen today. Hang on a minute. Kha'Zix. Now, Hacker. This was Hacker's pocket. So it's so ironic that we're getting it out of WeiWei in game 3 against him.
And it just kind of really solidifies like the AoE slows with the spikes that you can land. Great burst pick potential, but not the most engaged in this composition. So still exceptionally hard to dive on a BLG. And we'll see what Ultra Prime end up solidifying their composition with. Could go for the Sejuani in the top lane again. You know, that CC could come in really handy. I feel like for Cryin, typically we see on these more utility-focused picks, I want to see like a long-range control mage, honestly, I think would make the most sense here. I feel like if you're playing dive, you're going to have a bit of a problem. See what he opts for. Azir would actually be really on theme. I'm not sure if it's a pick that we really see Cryin on. Potentially could come out. I would like this.
I'll have a lot of questions for you if this gets locked in, because I have some concerns about WeiWei, which I'll be asking you when we round out the drafts. I just want to see what goes into the top lane here, Orcs, because GP is open once again, but last time it was towards the Cogmore and Lulu lane. So Orcs will round this out on the top side and see what Bin goes for, because remember that Bin, Camille, Fiora, those are the champions I associate with him the most. But also the GP has to go in there too.
Yeah, so I feel like the Camille can make a lot of sense in terms of needing that like engage potential, but right now BLG are kind of at the whim of the enemy team. They want the enemy team to run into them. They want things like the barrel, the Swain AoE, the Ranata, Aphelios to just massacre anyone who gets close. Even those tanks like Zoom and ShiauC will get shredded if they misstep. The Kha'Zix is an interesting one and how that will work with the dynamic. You could potentially look for pick opportunities. That's absolutely something that you could find. But I kind of like Ultra Prime's comp in terms of like they have the strong engage tools, they have these long range carries, because ultimately Azir and Senna should never really get close enough to BLG's threats to feel the pain. And should WeiWei try and jump in for an assassination, Tahm Kench can just gobble someone up and then look to back away.
That's why I was going to ask you how WeiWei plays this game, because it looks really hard to play Kha'Zix into this comp with Tahm Kench, with Sejuani. There's so much, what would you call it? You know, so many bodyguards for the core carries that it feels like a big WeiWei performance, or this Kha'Zix might not do anything.
And the thing is, the Kha'Zix needs momentum. Level 6 is really where you come online initially and you get your first evolve and you get your ultimate. And then it's very much playing around vision pockets. So I wonder if we'll see the Umbral Glaive come out early. Because I think if you just go into a team fight, this Kha'Zix isn't going to have that much impact. It's not going to be that useful. If Ultra Prime are grouped, particularly the Tahm Kench is there, you're going to have a hard time assassinating anyone. Like, the only real good target is like Senna or Azir. Sure. And even then, you should expect Tahm to be with Senna. Azir can shove you away on his own. So I feel like if WeiWei gets a lead, if Hacker makes a mistake, sure, I can see it working. If they play around vision very effectively, again, I can see windows. Especially with the durability patch coming in, I feel like this might be a hard game for WeiWei. And the rest of the team, like, there's good scaling, don't get me wrong, like, on the side of BLG. But I feel like it's just the fact that if Ultra Prime play with their ranges effectively, it might be difficult for them on the side of BLG to lay down damage.
Okay, well, it seems like it's going to be on the back of WeiWei a bit here. He has gone with the Ghost Smite here as a Kha'Zix jungle with Conqueror. So we're not going full electrocute, folks. We're not going Dark Harvest or anything that really insinuates that this Kha'Zix is going to be a huge assassin. But at the very least, Aux, do you want to touch on it?
It's going to be a bit more bruisery, I expect. Like one of the things with Kha'Zix is when Gordrinker was really strong, we saw him like rush towards that.
Yep.
And I imagine this could be a similar thing coming out here. You're in for the long extended fights where you get multiple rotations of your cooldown, stack Conqueror, Ghost keeps you going. And if you get a reset, you obviously can reset your dash later on when you have that evolved and the Ghost gets extended duration. The problem is I feel like that build may not have enough pop to execute those squishy carries. I don't know. It's hard for me to judge because I haven't seen too much Kha'Zix on this patch, especially not this specific build. We'll see how it does end up playing out. For now, though,
ShiauC
what?
Just flash exhaust over the wall. He wanted it, and he literally wanted to taste the fear of WeiWei. But BLG have rotated here, and the handshake on blue buff, not going to get anything on Ultra Prime, but FoFo's coming behind enemy lines, and Cryin hasn't moved. The never move, in fact, doesn't get anyone but Ignite down on ShiauC. This is messy, and with FoFo missing, Elk is just firing away. Waiting for that cooldown again. FoFo finally gets it this time. He flashes forward for it as well. The handshake good. BLG, the early start in their hands. Chris flashes forward as well. And now tasting the fear. It's FoFo who picks up the second. And Ultra Prime, that's gotta sting.
At least in game one, Hacker waited till 3 minutes. But, I mean, they're starting even earlier. In this one, what was ShiauC doing? We're going to watch the replay, and I can speculate, but man, that was such a bad play. Clearly saw WeiWei and thought, he has no flash. If I flash over and lock him down, there's no way he wins. But instantly, as soon as you make that play, you've just lost both summoners on one of your champions in like this level 1 fight where summoners can be so impactful. And as a result, BLG just play the long extended fight. Cryin even pushes the first wave in and then comes over slowly, but Azir level 1, so useless, right? You just put the soldiers down. You don't even have Q to reposition them. And like, they got so much value out of the Ranata with those constant autos, the handshakes. Just, oh man. A terrible and honestly unnecessary play, I feel like, from Ultra Prime.
When we're just talking about draft and how it feels like a difference, it's a 1k gold lead now. BLG, they might not be ahead in the jungle, but there's a kill mid. And there's set up in the bottom lane. Look at the CS differences. Bin now ignited. He's deep again. We know Bin for this so well. As Zoom absorbs damage, but Hacker's going to get the kill. Ultra Prime at least getting something back in the game thanks to Bin.
And I feel like Bin on the enemy team is like perfect scenario for Hacker because he is the jungler who will punish you with ganks. And Bin, this is what we've been critical of him all of spring, is he plays with blinkers. He doesn't look towards the rest of the map, doesn't care about enemy jungler. He's like, I am going to fist fight enemy top laner and whatever happens, happens. And once again, an easy pickup for Hacker. Will say that they didn't bring in the flash from Bin, so not really as painful as could be. Still not exactly ideal, but we do something to take into account. It's Cryin in the mid lane. We saw him with the CS lead in game 1, and I will say in FoFo's defense, he did kind of get punished by the invade where Cryin first got the push in, but 20 CS lead already in this game.
After that invade, it's kind of funny to see that gold is even. Like, BLG was such a big win, but yeah, Aux, it's coming back to Cryin stayed in lane, and FoFo missed his first never move, but had to flash for the second. So for BLG, they're just going to continue trailing behind for now. Now, bot is the CS lead, as you'd expect in Senna, Tahm, Kench, but a little bit more so than usual with Doggo and Crisp having a bit more time in lane here, Aux. So they're going to continue pushing out, and it just feels like right now BLG have control down here, but they are losing control in the rest of the map, especially mid, as we keep seeing Cryin hard pushing up.
And this is a thing where seeing strong individual performance from Cryin, obviously with the extra help from the invade, but ultimately Cryin is a player who's criticized his individual play who'd lose lane and sacrifice it for the team to make RNG with ShiauC top work. But here, actually really punishing FoFo, challenging someone who is seen as one of the top laners in the league. I mean, last year in summer, people were talking about FoFo really being up there, and he is falling behind a bit. Is able to recoup, but a TP from Cryin will continue to apply that pressure. So good start in the mid lane. Top lane's going fine. Jungle matchup is okay. It's only really this bot lane I'm a bit concerned about. But losing farm on the Tahm Kench isn't as impactful as long as you're still getting souls on the Senna. And the expectation is this is kind of a rough lane anyway for Senna Tahm, because the double range matchup, the fact that Ranata can auto and then the proc means Doggo can deal extra damage. It's just a lane you have to try and survive as a Senna Tahm. Use your sustain tools.
So walk me through as Crisp has made an early roam here in the mid lane. I'm going to pause for now. WeiWei's coming in as well, but FoFo needs a never move. Chris just looking to help the shove out with the loyalty program. Aux is going to ask you a little bit about what WeiWei does with the map state, but maybe the answer is going to come through top side as Cannon Barrage used on top of Zoom. The barrage does not finish off the pig, and unfortunately, Zoom has to sit back for now, and well, Bin's not going to challenge any further, so CS won't be a problem.
Yeah, should just be able to pick this up. Has to be concerned about the ultimate potentially from Zoom, even though you can orange it with Locky in place, and you're not really going to go for a solo dive. Does have that Doran shield and presumably second win for the harass. You asked me a question, I forgot what it was.
I actually didn't finish it. I was going to ask you about what WeiWei does with this game state. Like, what do you do as the Kha'Zix? Because there was a lot of emphasis on this pick and what it had to achieve. Otherwise, Ultra Prime could kind of just coast with the comp they've set up.
You farm to 6. We are seeing the Gold Rank of Kha'Zix, who is that Bruiser build. But basically, you farm up to 6 and you get that empowerment with your skill upgraded. And then you look for those skirmishes where if someone is isolated, you get all that extra damage. Particularly if it's like a scattered skirmish, right? If, say, the front line of Ultra Prime jump in and then Elk is left alone, Kha'Zix can really just burst you down. And the fact is you're bulky enough, maybe not quite yet, right? You don't have those tank items coming in this soon, but when you get the Gore Drinker, you will be tanky enough to withstand at least a little bit of damage in return and maybe find those extended plays. Use things like the stealth and use diving in between brushes to find windows to assassinate those squishier targets.
Well, I mean, with starting off the Dragon and getting towards 6, WeiWei's definitely ticking one of those boxes. You did mention that it does come down to that 6 marks, getting one of the Evolve, and we'll see which one that is as well. Up CS in the jungle, but Hacker has a kill, and he's able to take away Krugs, plus set up a potential dive up here again. Bin is down 10 CS against the Sejuani. Zoom doing pretty well. And Hacker continues putting pressure on this top lane GP right in front of the Herald that's now spawned.
Yeah, and this heavy prio mid, we can see FoFo even resetting now without TP to get back into lane. Cryin doing a fantastic job in this matchup. It is a good matchup, right? Azir is someone who finds that early prio, and Swain kind of struggles with that. His cooldowns on his Q, his main wave clear ability quite long. And so using the prio they have mid and top, able to secure this first Herald uncontested. So a solid start from Ultra Prime.
And meanwhile, down to the bottom lane, Doggo's going to ulti onto Elk, and it's Shuriken time here. Okie dokie. It's like 10-10 from Naruto, but unfortunately, much like the anime, doing absolutely nothing. Doggo trying again, though, getting that Calibrum into action, and the crescendo is still there, but missing away from the Calibrum Q. Doggo keeping it in action, and now BLG trying to move down as well.
Yeah, trying to make something happen. ShiauC isn't level 6 yet, which I think is the big tool to mitigate the dive. but still feels risky. Remember, Ranata can make dives a fair bit easier with the W.
Sure.
They will steal away the red, and they're looking for this. Can they level up in time? Crisp and Doggo both 6, so Ultra Prime shouldn't be too far off, but it's not going to come in.
Hostile takeover does nothing, misses, hits between the coast, but FoFo's here to help out, and now onto ShiauC. WeiWei getting that isolation bonus, but ShiauC will survive. That Tahm Kench doing wonders as Cryin comes in for extra support.
There's the level 6 now, literally just a couple of seconds after.
Oof.
And that kind of goes back to that invade. Missing out the first wave meant they kind of denied the experience, and so as a result we see the dive working off without a hitch. 4 members was enough. No ultimate from the Tahm Kench making all the difference, and it's an extra kill going in the pocket of FoFo, so I like the proactivity coming out from BLG.
Okay, so dive goes well. BLG have done it again. We've seen that BLG in the last game, you know, their dives were clean, and they pulled them off really, really nicely. Once again, that's come through. FoFo's in a good place, but also remember that this is the Imperial Mandate build, so gold is going to essentially a support Swain as we look at this one again.
Yeah, the root, honestly, from Elk, not the best. You should have saved that for the dive so that you can root FoFo and he could take enough tower hits to die. You can see the Swain very bulky with the ultimate, but even then has to get out quickly before the tower shots ramp, and able just to pick up the Senna and get away in that situation. Won't really be able to do that again. I think something big with Tahm Kench is not only the fact that obviously his ult stops you from being able to hit them, the shield afterwards is pretty massive. And you're either burning enough damage to get through it, in which case you're wasting your cooldowns to kill the target, or you're letting it time out, neither of which are ideal for a dive.
True.
Maybe Elk overstepping.
Yeah, trusting ShiauC. I mean, there we go, the Devour in action. Elk saved.
Problem is,
why?
It's a cooldown used, right?
Yeah.
Just from overstepping there a little bit. And realistically, you know, you can definitely fish for souls sometimes and overstep, or you can try and get trades that give you souls and go too far. But really, you shouldn't be the one stepping up. It should be ShiauC, so a bit of a mistake there from Elk.
And now with that cooldown, remember in the early game, going to be massive here. Tongue Lash comes through from Doggo, the bailout as well onto Elk. He's got no saving grace this time. Cannon Barrage from downtown. Ben puts him in the trash.
Had to press R. Elk had to press R as soon as possible to get the shield. I just don't think he had time before the Cannon Barrage came down, but ultimately, Doggo and Crisp just styling on this bot lane 2v2. But like the Senna Tahm Kench might be the option, the long-range tools of the Senna. But my question really is, the Tahm Kench, was it necessary? We see Senna Tahm as a traditional bot lane, but I've seen so many variations, particularly in the ERLs in Europe. Seen like Senna Seraphine, seen even Senna Swain come out sometimes. Sure. I feel like if you know your bot lane matchup, and you know it's not like a super aggressive all-in one, maybe Tahm Kench wasn't needed necessarily. But either way, they made their bed and they have to lay in it, and now the lane phase is the thing that's really been going rough to the side of Ultra Prime. We'll see what they can do from here.
Well, Herald was put down mid, so at least some gold goes back, and it's into Cryin. Remember the Cryin in game number 2 on the Talia was also 30 CS ahead. He's maintained that in this game. He's got himself a Leandries on the Azir. So Cryin pretty strong here this early on. Also want to point out that, you know, Haka still pretty strong himself, trailing in CS, but now has a Divine Sunderer. So these are the people it feels like to watch out for, Aux. While on the other side, BLG, I mean, there's an Imperial Mandate on the San already, but again, we aren't getting the Leandries from him. But Bin got a kill there. Bin got a kill with the ultimate, and now able to match Zoom a little better. And Bin with resources, like we saw in last game, does a hell of a lot.
Oh, I mean, yeah, look at that parlay that came in. The Triforce now completed. Big spike for the GP. So they come to the spot. Now, BLG look for that second dragon. Now, I think Ultra Prime contest. So BLG get off to a really solid start. Got those early objectives. And that's something that Kha'Zix is fantastic at. That Q damage on isolated targets just mean you could rush down those neutrals so quickly.
Yeah.
And able to secure them early on. 2 dragons to be caught so early. Very impactful. Ocean Soul comes in. I feel like definitely has some value. You know, this is going to be a bulkier Kha'Zix, but I think better for Ultra Prime, who have more tankier members, in all honesty.
Just love watching topside. Zoom does enough damage, but so does Bin. Ignite comes down. It gets a bit more serious with Hacker joining in, but Bin's away in time. Meanwhile, on the bottom side, ShiauC slowed down. Doggo doing his fair share. Handshake missing, but the loyalty program really not adding too much. Unfortunately, not enough rewards points to get the car. And so Crisp, it just pulls away as well. But BLG's bottom lane, they continue dominating. You can see the CS difference, and take that what you will with the Tahm Kench and Senna. But at the very least, Doggo and Crisp are always pushed up, always adding pressure, Aux.
Yeah, I think the significant thing as well is the plate difference that are really coming. You know, nearly got 4 plates done, and Elk's trying to make these trades happen, but so scary this Aphelios if you just end up mispositioning. Oh, Elk.
Well, he's going to hit, and ShiauC eats him up midway. Good shielding.
Look at
Chris
the TP.
now in trouble, flashes away, dodges from the behind him, but Cryin's here. On top of Doggo, he will not let him escape. 1 kill for the Azir. Give him a double, and suddenly it might be BLG that are crying.
And look at the clock, 14 minutes and 20 seconds. 14 minutes hit, and Cryin hesitated, not even for a millisecond. TP'd straight down to make that work. Really great play, and Cryin is honestly like Superman this game. Yep. Winning lane, finds the roam with the TP, gets those 2 kills, gonna be able to return for mid, and sure, BLG are able to pick up that Herald, but it's post 14 minutes, won't be able to get those extra plates with it. I don't think Ultra Prime are concerned, and that was a full health tower. They just managed to decimate through, I believe. I think it was full health, right? Either way, a ton of plates, a ton of gold.
Yeah, either way, it falls Aux. That's what matters as we look to the top side. TP play, BLG want revenge, and on to Zoom. This will be harder to dive, but the Herald, it'll help out. Barrels at the ready, and Zoom now up against the wall. An Arctic Assault out, but WeiWei jumps in with his own little bailout. FoFo survives too, and that's going to be a turret trade. So BLG still trying to be proactive in the midst of an upset.
But look at mid, right? This is just an up trade for Ultra Prime. They got 2 kills compared to 1. They did trade towers, but they got the extra plates as well and got the first tower goal. Actually, no, they didn't get the plates, sorry. It was post 14 minutes. It was. Yeah. So they didn't get the plates, but they got the first tower gold, whereas BLG missed out on it. And it's just the instant TP as soon as 14 minutes hit. You see the Azir turn up, kills Doggo. Crisp can't do anything. He's already burnt his flash. Really heads up play. And then on the back of this, they get that bot lane tier 1, get the first tower gold. They get the mid lane tier 1, really impactful from Cryin. And things are looking positive for Ultra Prime. Gold is even. BLG have 2 dragons, but they definitely managed to pull things back. And I am looking towards that next dragon as a point of contention.
That's why we're talking up Ultra Prime, guys. Remember, the BLG might have been the super team from last split. They might have been in playoffs. Ultra Prime missing out, but Ultra Prime got Zoom this split. They finished 12th in spring. And were kind of on the cusp like OMG were. They're a team that, yeah, you could have seen them make playoffs and get that last spot. They're also a team, though, that you're like, well, you can understand why they wouldn't get that last spot. For Ultra Prime, winning up against OMG in the first series was amazing, but here putting up the effort against BLG is good too. Now can they survive the dive in the mid lane as Elk gets tagged out, but WeiWei can't commit. No isolation with the tadpole right next to you, and they just have to back away. Mid lane turret stays standing, and BLG still struggling to crack through.
Yeah, and it's so hard to take these towers, especially like an Azir being on the map in general is such a wall. But when you move the Senna Tahm in here, it's so hard to just find a dive opportunity. They've just been moving Cryin around. He's going to take this top lane tower, more gold for him. And he has really just been doing as much as he can in this game. Going to take a couple of hits, but 300 extra gold in his pocket. More farm picked up. 184 CS in 17 minutes. And this is a new look for Cryin. Someone who I'll hit on it again. We've mentioned a few times today. When he was on the RNG, the MSI winning roster, people were critical of him. He was looked at as the weakest player. Focused more on roaming instead of the individual laning. He's been given a matchup in this game that he can take over on, and so far he has.
Kind of gives me those vibes of Cryin in the early stage of MSI. Remember in 2020, where he had some real dominant mid lane shellacking performances. BLG, pause. We got a bit of a pick here onto Hacker, but quickly stops as Cryin joins in. WeiWei takes a tiny bit of damage, but it's the numbers I'm worried about as BLG push the button to go. Doggo's jumping in on top of ShiauC. He's dragged back with an Evermove. The flare comes out, but ShiauC's taken so long to die, but eventually he will. Doggo with the kill, and meanwhile, Hacker has to back away at half HP. Elk's now joined in, but BLG feeling confident to look for the third dragon, which is a big deal.
We'll see if they can contest. ShiauC obviously can't eat himself. The one who can't be saved. No flash means he's cut out, but they're still looking for an angle.
Look at Bin zoning, though. Glacial Prison not going to come out, and that's a barrel once again. Bin running forward, and Elk's ulti does work, but into the back line. Cryin jumping in, making a bounce out, but WeiWei survives. Ultra Prime getting low, and as we get Cryin down and dead, now Doggo's ready to go. Bin behind him, and Ultra Prime running for the hills. And the hill, the turn, Hacker needs a reset, but Chris won't give it to him. As the chase continues, WeiWei wants to get him down, but Doggo's now here right in front. Bin as well, trying to chase up, but BLG might need to get out of there now. Zoom still chasing himself. Route after route, play after play, no one dying yet. Bin with the barrel chamber. ShiauC, what a hero. Jumping forward, Ultra Prime might regret that one as, again, only a couple of deaths coming through, but BLG get the dragon and they knock Cryin off of his pedestal.
I think the problem there for Ultra Prime is they were late to the play. So talked a lot about at the start of the game how Ultra Prime have the range advantage. And I think the pivotal thing with that is being on the objective first and forcing BLG to come into you. When BLG are the ones set up, that's what they want. They want you to come into them. And so what ends up happening is initially ShiauC is just super overextended for this control ward. Doggo with the Gale Force into Calibrum means he's caught out. No way to escape, no flash. Can't obviously gobble himself. And that's the pick that kind of sets up BLG. Senna able to move into the river. And as much as Cryin tries to go for the big hero play, it's honestly a mistake because you're opting into what BLG want. BLG want you to come into them so that Doggo with red-white can just free hit. So when Cryin flies in and looks for the shuffle, we get the flash from Crisp and then the jump away from WeiWei so no one's caught. And now look at Doggo. He's standing on Cryin, ready to decimate him. And then the follow-up to the fight. Oh. Engage won't come in there, though they're looking.
I mean, Zoom's dead. Zoom is now dead. His carcass on the floor. WeiWei not going to get caught out on the side either. That top laner was the fridge that you buy at Bunnings for $1,000 and it lasts you 10 years. Now that it's down, what do? BLG is a 4-man unit sitting here strong, but it's Bin I'm worried about with the barrel chain over the wall. It's going to come through, but misses only slightly. Mid lane turret stays standing and still a pain for BLG to knock this one down, but they keep getting more and more.
And I'm just not sure what happened with Zoom going down, but there is definitely the DPS on BLG. Never any hesitation about that. Doggo is absolutely mastering anyone who gets close, and Bin as well, similarly, can just shred. But it just feels like Ultra Prime keep opting into situations that aren't favorable for them. And that's one thing to be said of this composition. Bird of execution is higher. And we'll see how this ends up actually playing out. Looks like Zoom just dives in, and this is a problem. It's onto a Swain who has the ability to pop that ultimate. He's fine with you diving into him. This is what BLG want. They want to be dove into, and it's only when Ultra Prime realize the fight is bad and start running away that you can see BLG's comp isn't as effective, right? They're not as good at chasing down. They want you to run into them, and I think Ultra Prime need to re-examine how they're approaching these fights.
Because again, there was such a highlight on the draft difference on how Ultra Prime set themselves up for ease of access. Ease of this third game for potential win. Now, Ultra Prime aren't that far behind in gold, but Dragons are a concern here, Orcs. We've got an Ocean Soul coming up in a minute 30. BLG prepared. 1k gold lead's significant enough, but it is also item territory we're getting into. 2 items with a stopwatch there for the mid lane Swain in FoFo. We have a 2-item GP on Bin. Phage is moving into the third. Also got a 2-item Doggo, soon to be as well, with what looks to be, Infinity? Bloodthirster. Thank you very much.
Can't build Infinity at second, that's illegal.
Yeah.
I
was like, that's
I think one of the issues here is we're seeing like the mid-game trough for a Senna, 2 levels down on Doggo, particularly when a team like a Senna falls behind. It's so easy to just lose out in levels if you're denied waves, because again, you're not the one farming. But 50 seconds on this dragon. The pivotal thing is whoever gets onto the area first, who gets control of it, will have such a big advantage. Both teams kind of want you to run into them. So establishing control, very, very important. And both teams are hotly trying to contest this here and now.
That's why it's scared for Bin to do exactly that. Zoom takes a chunk. Now, Zoom is a 2-item Sejuani with Fimble Winter, but remember, we are going to require a back here for him to heal up the majority before this fight takes off. 35 seconds, 25. I was pixelated until this dragon spawns. Ocean Soul coming through his TP now. There is all handshake on Hacker. That's the jungler. The smite now also at half HP. Hacker caught out in the exact same position Zoom just was. Never move again. Ultra Prime keeps walking into the same position. Literally, I feel like this has happened more times than I've watched the Shrek movie. Ultra Prime still walking in, but their health bars are a bit scattered.
Oh, Engage coming in.
Ultra Prime is coming through as well. This is good onto the back of Bin. Cryin has a whopper of an ulti, but look at this. The ulti from Crisp. The W, I mean, onto Bin. Beautiful as Doggo heading forward. BLG. This is their Ultra Prime now, as Crisp is just so confident after the play. WeiWei with his resets continues to run forward, and for BLG. They're feeling themselves at this point.
So many low health bars on the side of BLG, but Hacker cannot find a reset. Oh,
again, they just keep walking into Swain. I don't know what to say, Aux.
Every time, it just feels on repeat, and you can see how much they're trying to get into the river. They eventually look for an engage, but BLG's comp is in prime position to deal with it. Bin doesn't even go down because of the W from Chris coming in, the reset. And BLG, they get the dragon, they get Ocean Soul. Gonna make so much difference, because honestly, you know, the two DPS threats on Ultra Prime are Elk and Cryin. Ocean Soul will just make it so much harder for them to cut through targets. And we got a replay, so Zoom fishes for Bin, does catch him, and it looks like he's going to go down. But the W from the Ranata means even though he runs out of health, all he has to do is kill Zoom, and Doggo is there to make sure it happens. Low health bars coming in, but Ultra Prime, they've lost their primary frontliner, and Doggo even feels confident enough to charge forwards. The constant never moves coming in to drag people in, and despite once more stopwatches coming in to keep people from going down, BLG managed to find the fight.
Beautiful ult from Chris. Beautiful W, sorry, with the bailout. Chris saving the day, keeping Bin in it. The highlight of BLG, if you haven't heard, in the past, consistently, was always about this support. 2-1 and 10 here on the Ranata. 100% kill participation, not surprising. And as Aux said just before we went to a break, or rather, a replay, 3K gold lead, but more importantly, the Ocean Soul now here at 25 minutes, Aux.
And I'm pretty sure it was in spring, if I remember correctly. It was Chris that everyone was like fearful off his Ranata when it first came onto the Rift, because he'd played it to such a masterful level in like solo queue, and so it was frequently banned against him. We didn't actually get to see it for quite a while, and this is kind of showing why the comfort on this champion. Spellbook taken as well, now running with the Ghost. WeiWei could be in trouble though.
Yeah, he's on a ward, has to leap over, but the Heartbreaker matches and going invisible for the time being. Hacker is isolated but tanky enough to absorb it. Ultra Prime forcing away WeiWei's ulti. It won't be a big cooldown, but still trying to get that pick.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is as soon as you dive with the wall, it becomes a 1v1 with the Kha'Zix. He fares pretty well, but does just use that ultimate to get away. BLG, this is how they're just playing. They are getting control of an area, and anyone who tries to approach Multi Prime, they're just throwing out cooldowns at them.
I mean, FoFo with a never move, aiming for Elk once again, trying to get that Tahm Kench ulti out, but look, here we go.
Look at Bin.
Rolling through, everybody attack each other, and now with FoFo forward and Doggo feeling as well. Cryin's ulti, a big deal, but he's jumped on, and the bailout helping so much. ShiauC and Zoom left as remnants. BLG making it so up must come down.
And was that a triple kill for Chris coming out? What a mad one, but BLG able to find the engage windows. They're just so much stronger than Ultra Prime now. They charge at them, don't give them time to move. Bin with the beautiful flank coming in to cut them off, and now BLG can go towards the Baron. 17 kills to 4. BLG so favored in this game.
Feels like we put this one in getting too hard basket here. It's been a couple of back and forths, and even though it's 17 to 4, gold 6,000. It'll bridge to about 7.5, make it 8. BLG might have just secured themselves their first series win of the LPL 2022 summer off the back of a very hard series, but a very entertaining one, including the game.
Yeah, and Hackett dashes forward. They know he doesn't have ultimate. They know he doesn't have flash. So they just chase him down. The permanent slows coming out from FoFo with their allies now. And Bin finds this angle with the barrel. It only actually connects onto Hacker, and he's not the full crit build. He's not doing as much damage, but it's enough to finish off. And then Cryin doing what he can. Doing what he can. The tower setup, the Emperor's Divide to try and force them under it. But all the healing coming out from BLG, the Ocean Soul, just means no one's actually taking that much damage. They're healing up. Remember that fight before? Everyone was so low at the end. Everyone who survived there for BLG was basically full HP.
You're right, though. Chris got a triple kill. That's something I haven't seen on a support in quite a while. So, you know, props again. Chris 5-1 and 12. That 100% kill participation is holding strong. And at this point, BLG with the Baron buff, the waves looking so hard for Cryin to clear because Elk's not doing enough damage. He's 1.5 items strong. It's all about Cryin and how do he deal with multiple waves at once.
And I think, honestly, Ocean Soul, I think Mountain Soul would have been really bad as well, but Ocean Soul so bad for Ultra Prime, for BLG to have it, because they're lacking the damage, you know? I feel like if it was Infernal, you know, that's giving the enemy team extra damage. You have these bulky frontliners, but they just cannot cut through. And Doggo with this Bloodthirster, look at the shield he has.
Yeah.
It's so disgusting. And remember, you're often gonna have to kill him twice because the Ranata W really is a struggle for Ultra Prime. They're trying to play base defense right now, but it's a minute 20 until the Baron times out. And you know what also is around that time, Starix? It's the Elder Dragon.
Yeah.
So this is probably going to be, BLG may not be able to crack the base. They may do, but more importantly, Ultra Prime won't get to leave their inhibitor towers. And then Elder Dragon's going to spawn, and Ultra Prime have to walk all the way through their red side jungle to get there. And I think that is where the game is going to end, because either BLG get the Elder or BLG get the fight.
Well, one or the other. It still feels very sure thing. Bin's whittling away at the turrets with the Baron buff getting so much value. 3,500 gold Baron power play so far. We've got 45 seconds left, and BLG are assaulting on all angles. Now pushing through. They get an inhibitor turret, and Ultra Prime are just trying to defend, but FoFo's so confident. WeiWei as well. This bruiser Kha'Zix taking nothing as Elk's dragged in, saved by ShiauC, but now ShiauC is going to die for that sin. Elk running all back, but FoFo doesn't care. He's built support. He'll do enough. Aux, it won't even end outside the base, or maybe for now it gets delayed. Doggo going to try and do it himself as Bin's joined in, and Zoom is still a bit of a fridge. Running forward, Doggo taking some damage, but the Gale Force gets him out of dodge, and hang on a minute. Bin drops the ulti, and BLG are just toying with him at this point.
I think you see the divide. You know, BLG start to rush forward and tower dive. That's when Ultra Prime actually start to find the kills. Importantly, Cryin rejoins. He is the one with all the damage. But as soon as Ultra Prime start chasing down BLG, the kiting comes in, the burst, the shredding through.
Hello?
TP coming in from Cryin, though. They're trying to actually contest this Elder, and I think it's the right call.
But Bin is here. Level 17 Gangplank off on the wing. WeiWei is going to run face first. Bin not involved for now. Cryin with some good poke as well, and that stops the Elder buff. That stops the Elder from even getting started again. BLG playing it very close to the chest.
Yeah, but it's just a mistake from BLG. They didn't need to overstep. They saw the end of the game, and now they've allowed Ultra Prime to leave the base to contest this Elder. You can see TP is available to Bin. There were some pings on the inhibitor, but Zoom is there defending with his TP. This is still such a hard play for Ultra Prime to make, but they have to try and make this work. They have to try and contest this. TP coming in now from Bin. He's just had a reset. They want the fight to happen. We can see WeiWei fishing on the flank.
All right, ShiauC is going to have a big day of it because he's saved Elk so many times. ShiauC has been a bit of a saving grace, but how do you survive this one? How do you get yourself through this fight as Ultra Prime on death's door with Zoom still defending, not making the TP play yet? WeiWei on the backside. The junglers are not even near the dragon. BLG want to turn for the fight instead. It's Bin who sets up his barrel chain. I'm waiting for it to pop off, but Cryin is denying it. With WeiWei still not in the pit and the dragon just taking its sweet time. Orcs, they have Ocean Soul. Why would they rush?
They can just sustain up the poke. Cryin's trying to get it down. He's doing a good job of deleting the barrels before they come up, but no one's really finding too much presence here. Bin is not looking.
Cannon Barrage comes through. That means he's going to commit now as the barrel goes through. Only onto Hacker. Zoom finally TP's in, but BLG, they're the ones taking the brunt of the damage, and they haven't killed Cryin, who feels like a bit of the raid boss here. But BLG move on back the Ocean Soul, helping them again. And onto the dragon it begins.
You can see the difficulty. The engage is lacking for BLG. They try and throw it on the Ranata ult, but it's not doing enough. The thing that's favoring them is that Ocean Soul, the sustain, keeping them healthy.
Cryin with a big ulti. Yeah, it's a good one, but onto WeiWei. He's buying time. Bin's going to go mid and end the game, while BLG have already found Hacker. Jungler down in a 5 versus 4. Ultra Prime still not winning as Cryin's now caught out. He's separated from ShiauC, who jumps into the rest of them. What a big surprise. A massive hug from BLG. 4 people squish him inside. Elk gets destroyed, and now Bin deals with Zoom with an open Nexus. What a great series between BLG and Ultra Prime to give us such potential in these teams. But for BLG, getting their first win was so important of the split. For the once super team, rebuilding the roster, BLG looking damn spicy for this season.
And honestly, in that game, Doggo redeeming himself for that game 2, where on the Kog'Maw, he felt like he kept getting caught, but there on the Aphelios, super aggressive, knowing he had the backup of Crisp, able to deliver. And despite, you know, I called out some limitations to the composition, we even saw them struggling to find the engages. They got ahead, they got control of the area, they knew what they had to do. They would set up on an objective and force Ultra Prime to contest into them, and time again, it just worked so well.
I think both teams, you know, coming away with quite a lot to learn from that series. I would be impressed with
sure.
Ultra Prime. What happened in their second game? I would say that Aux overall, like, the biggest standout in this series is like someone like Cryin, Bin as well, adapting to their rosters. Cryin had such a good series. And even in that Azir last game, like, despite them losing, I think Cryin was at points of saving grace and still played well enough.
I feel like even for me, Crisp is such a standout. The Ranata performance in game 3, fantastic. Game 2, when his teammates kept getting caught out, the only reason they didn't die nearly as many times was him on the Lulu. We said it time and time again, the ultimate being thrown on a FoFo to keep him healthy, but really, he wasn't the one getting picked off 9 times out of 10. And I feel like Crisp just showing why, you know, he is rated so highly, even when BLG was struggling. Really fantastic performance.
Yeah, again, Crisp, Ranata was banned against him in spring when it first came out. No one else was getting a respect ban, and then Crisp brought it to the table, and we kind of saw why. So another great Ranata game from him. A highlight for me was also Bin throughout the day. Bin had some bullying thrown against him in game number 1, but he was great in game 2. He was great in game 3. Filling me with hope, because when we saw the trade of BLG sending Breathe to RNG sending Bin to BLG, I was thinking, oh, this is the worst trade. Like, you know, losing Breathe, I think Breathe was, you know, considered a better top laner, but Bin's still an MSI champion, and he's kind of acting like it.
And I think, you know, Lyric was saying he feels like Bin as an addition to BLG can work well, having something that you can play to. Didn't really happen in this series, but and as much as he was still vulnerable to those ganks, became such a menace in the later stages. Cryin doing everything he can to turn it around, but ultimately, I think the Ocean Soul just kind of allowed BLG to hit critical mass. Elk, this is kind of a recurring issue with the Senna, is if you fall behind in the mid game, like this game, I think at the end, Elk was like level 10, level 11, I think he was level 11, and Doggo was level 15. And like, I know the whole point of the fasting Senna is you're going to be down in gold and experience, but you make up for it with the souls. But that is such a massive discrepancy. And remember, with the durability patch, the health per level, the armor per level, the magic resist per level is up. So you're 4 levels down your counterpart. This big, beefy Aphelios with a Bloodthirster, with a Ranata who can't go down. And Elk, I feel like if anyone looked at him, he just dropped. And you even saw like him autoing WeiWei doing basically no damage. And I'm surprised he had that much damage in the game.
He didn't have 2 items till the very end. He was sitting on Umbral Glaive with components towards the Eclipse.